The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects as I stood in the server room that Tuesday morning, fingers dancing across the keyboard in recovery mode. The primary root server had gone down overnight. One of those temperamental beasts I'd nursed through more crises than I cared to count. 9 years at this company in the heart of Austin's tech corridor, and I'd become the invisible force holding the digital skeleton together. No one saw the late nights, the endless patches, the way I could trace every packet like veins in a body. They just expected the lights to stay on. Then he walked in. Travis Klein, the new IT director, fresh from a flashy consultancy in Chicago, striding through the door like he owned the racks themselves. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that perpetual 5 o'clock shadow and a laugh that echoed too loud off the metal cabinets. His cologne hit first sharp. Expensive. The kind that announces arrival before words do. He leaned against the rack, aviator sunglasses still hooked on his shirt collar, and watched me work for a moment before speaking. "No woman touches my root server," he said, voice casual but edged with something proprietary, like marking territory. I paused, hands still on the keys, the cursor blinking expectantly. The air felt thicker suddenly, the hum of cooling fans louder in the silence that followed. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. He was smiling that frat boy grin, the one that said he'd peaked somewhere in his 20s and never quite accepted it. I smiled back, slow, deliberate, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes but holds steady. "Then I suggest you handle the cascading token loop yourself," I replied evenly. "It's about to take out HR's biometric vault along with 2 subnets." He chuckled, tapping the chassis like it was a sports car hood. "Sweetheart, I've been running infrastructures longer than you've been firing up laptops. Step aside." I didn't argue. I stepped back, letting him fumble. Watched as his confidence faltered when the errors mounted. Inside, something shifted, not hot rage, but a cold, precise clarity. This wasn't about one rude comment. It was the latest crack in a foundation I'd built brick by digital brick. 9 years of being the quiet one in meetings, the one who fixed what others broke, bypassed firewalls with a coffee and a few lines of code, all while executives dined on catered lunches upstairs and joked about the ghost in the machine. Travis didn't notice the redundant NAS clusters humming behind him, the optimizations I'd poured sleepless nights into. He strutted through his first week like a conqueror, reassigning tasks, sidelining input from anyone who didn't match his swagger. In meetings, he'd cut me off with a wave. "Let's keep this high level for the non-tech folks." I was the tech folk. When I pointed out the risks of untested patches rolling out company-wide, he'd smirk. "No need to bore everyone with theory." Huh. The theft started small. My VM load balancer optimizations appeared in his cross-departmental presentation as his breakthrough, complete with slides lifted straight from my Git history. I sat in the back, neutral expression fixed, while colleagues nodded along. Inside, the furnace stoked higher. But I didn't confront. Confrontation was messy, emotional, exactly what he expected from the woman. "No," I observed. I documented. That week became my week of quiet needles. I noticed everything. The intern he gave domain admin rights to just to speed up folder moves. The temporary disable of email encryption he forgot to re-enable. The plaintext credentials file on his desktop labeled "Don't forget these." Public Wi-Fi sessions with VPN off. Each slip carefully logged in my offline spreadsheet, timestamps, screenshots, log excerpts, color-coded and archived. I called it the God file privately. One day, it would judge. By Friday, the humiliation ritual was routine. He sent me to recable the server room in heels while he lunched with venture reps. "Of course. Happy to help," I texted back, smiley face included. My jaw ached from the forced pleasantness women learn young. But beneath it, the plan crystallized. This wouldn't be sabotage, no deleted files, no viruses. It would be protocol-compliant erosion, letting his arrogance expose the rot. The best revenge is watching someone dismantle their own kingdom, believing they're building it stronger. I kept my face pleasant through it all. When he called me kiddo in front of the CIO, my smile widened just enough. When he claimed another of my fixes as his own, I nodded along. But every night, alone in my small apartment overlooking the Colorado River, I'd review the God file, adding layers. The tripwires were subtle, nested maintenance scripts, cron jobs with misleading timestamps, dependencies interwoven so delicately that only the architect could untangle them. Reversible for me. Catastrophic for him. The company was a mid-sized fintech firm, the kind that boasted about innovation while running on duct-taped legacy systems I'd spent years stabilizing. Austin's boomtown energy pulsed outside, food trucks, live music, startups sprouting like weeds, but inside our glass-walled offices, it was stale coffee and flickering fluorescence masking deeper fractures. Travis saw only surface swagger. I saw the nervous system I'd wired myself. By the end of that first month, the seeds were planted deep. He thought he was sidelining an over-attached engineer. I was preparing the ground for when the house of cards he'd inherited would finally tip. The smirk he wore that first day in the server room lingered in my mind like a challenge. He wanted to own the root? Fine. But roots run deep, and cutting them carelessly invites collapse. I poured another coffee one evening, staring at the blinking cursor on my personal rig. The plan wasn't born of fury alone. It was born of exhaustion, of years dismissed as support rather than structural. The emotional weight settled heavy but clean. This was war by documentation, by patience, by letting consequences unfold naturally. And when the guillotine finally fell, I'd be ready, not with screams, but with silence that echoed louder than any outburst. The calendar flipped to the next Tuesday with merciless regularity. The kind of ordinary day that hides turning points. 10:16 a.m. The email landed in my inbox like a cold blade. Sync at 10:30. Office 12B. No signature. Travis's glass-walled lair awaited. Whiteboards covered in half-erased diagrams. Dual monitors glowing and used. I walked in badge clipped neatly. Hands empty. Expression schooled to blank professionalism. He didn't offer a seat. "You're done here," he said flatly, barely glancing up. "Pack up. HR has the paperwork." The words hung in the conditioned air, sharper than expected despite the months of preparation. 3 seconds of silence. I let him feel it, watching his fingers twitch toward the keyboard for something urgent to feign. No performance issues, no restructuring euphemisms. Just dismissal. Like swatting a fly. His eyes flicked to mine briefly, expecting tears or outrage. I gave him neither. A small, closed-lip smile instead. "You'll regret this," I said softly. Statement of fact, not threat. Then I turned and left, the door hissing shut behind me without a slam. Emotional displays were for amateurs. I'd saved mine for precision. Back at my desk, the packing was minimal: 1 cardboard box, favorite mug, 2 framed photos from better days, an old USB drive security always eyed suspiciously. I left the badge centered on the desk like a quiet declaration. Whispers rippled through the open plan floor as I walked to the elevators. Janet from finance caught my arm briefly. "Wait. They fired you?" I smiled again. The same practiced curve. Apparently, the elevator descent felt eternal. Austin's skyline visible through the glass, bustling with oblivious life. In my head, the architecture of response was already live. The God file sat encrypted off-network. My cloned logins and dormant scripts waited like sleeping sentinels. I hadn't touched a single production system on the way out, no downloads. No traces. Clean exit. Cleaner setup. That first night of unemployment was strangely peaceful. No Slack pings at 2 a.m. No frantic calls about redirected errors. I sat cross-legged on my living room floor at 6:47 a.m. The next morning, coffee steaming, staring at the offline server box humming softly behind an armchair. One click executed the first layer, obscure cron jobs activating in sequence. Maintenance windows nesting inside each other. Dependencies subtly misaligning without outright destruction. Elegant. Reversible only by the one who designed it. By 8:03 a.m., reports trickled in from my network of quiet allies. Monitors flickered in 4 departments. Remote logins failed intermittently. The ticketing system looped endlessly. Printers spat ASCII art trees across floors. Biometric scanners froze, trapping managers awkwardly while the CFO pounded on the vault door. At 8:21, recursive lockdown hit the root server. The rhythms I'd memorized over years played out predictably, ops calling vendors who shrugged, not our standard config. Documentation gaps emerging as my OneDrive vanished. War room assembling by 9 o'clock. I watched from afar. Old monitor tuned to public feeds and forwarded updates. Janet texted, "Everything's broken. They're losing it." Craig from DevOps slipped me a voice memo snippet, the CEO yelling at Travis. "She was the backbone. You amputated her." Pride kept them from calling me immediately. Travis tried brute-forcing chains I'd looped through obsolete APIs. Restoring backups needing a long-forgotten passphrase from a 3-year-old demo. Chaos brewed. But the system appeared half-functional from outside, dangerously deceptive. Lights blinking. Logins teasing access before snapping shut. Internally, panic spread like cracks in glass. Clients raged over failed invoices and SLA breaches. A logistics partner in the Midwest walked after repeated transmission failures. Government contract portals stayed locked. Whispers of my name surfaced in Slack threads. Has anyone reached out to her? She fixed this in minutes. Even Derek from janitorial, self-proclaimed IT adjacent after one coffee machine hack, joined the chorus. Pressure built in HR, legal, the C-suite. A leaked memo hinted at gross negligence inquiries. Through it all, I maintained surface calm. Morning runs along Lady Bird Lake. Quiet dinners. The laptop closed like a retired weapon. But the satisfaction was grim, not giddy. This was watching a warned against demolition unfold exactly as predicted. Travis's facade crumbled stitch by stitch, sweat-soaked presentations, unbuttoned collars, excuses about inherited fragility and disgruntled ex-staff. The wolves circled. Resignation started. Vendors suspended support. Stakeholders demanded logs he couldn't decipher. Media picked it up by midweek. Tech firm paralyzed by IT meltdown, hubris or sabotage? Stock dipped 13%. Venture calls poured in. A leaked board letter called it catastrophic leadership failure. Travis stood pale in the auditorium, fielding furious questions, claiming he'd identify oversights from the previous regime. But the refrain grew. She warned them. The emotional undercurrent ran deeper than triumph. Years of quiet endurance surfaced, weekends sacrificed, brilliance poured into stability that looked effortless. They mistook my restraint for weakness, my competence for disposability. The sexist taunt echoed, "No woman touches my root server." Now the kingdom stood exposed. Foundations severed by his own hand. I sipped wine, replaying the audio leaks, feeling the weight of sovereignty settle. They hadn't just fired an employee. They'd severed their own nervous system, expecting the body to thrive on bluster alone. Thursday bled into deeper decay. The company's polished facade cracked publicly, while internally it was prayer and duct tape. Auto-replies placated clients. PR spun scheduled improvements, but the backbone was severed. The system hummed just enough to lure users into false security before locking them out mid-task. International banking partners threatened breach notices. The Midwestern firm canceled outright. Whispers turned to open questions in team huddles. Why no contingency? Who designed this without documentation? I wasn't hiding. Friends like Janet and Craig fed updates via Proton Mail and burner texts, sensing their own vulnerability. A voice memo captured the CEO confronting Travis. You told her she wasn't needed? Travis's defense, insubordinate, sounded hollow even to him. Pride is a stubborn barrier. They still hadn't dialed my number. The headline exploded Friday. Front page of Tech Pulse Weekly. Company X paralyzed, sources cite incompetence or internal sabotage. LinkedIn and X, formerly Twitter, lit up. Industry loved the narrative. A rising fintech humbled by hubris. Systems down nearly a week. Payroll delays. Client exodus. Rumors of mismanagement. The mysterious firing. An anonymous ex-engineer quote nailed it. They fired the only person who understood the engine. Now flying blind with ego and a wrench. Stock plunged further. 3 venture partners demanded emergency meetings. A private equity observer's leaked letter called for accountability. By afternoon, Janet sent a screenshot. Travis in the auditorium. Collar undone. Sweat rings visible. Fumbling back-end explanations to furious stakeholders. Caption: He's melting. I stared at it long, expecting euphoria. Instead, cold clarity washed over. Public humiliation via 1,000 silent cuts, concerned questions from blazer-clad wolves who never shout but topple empires. He spun desperately. Inherited mess. Failed documentation. Critical oversights by predecessors. But evidence mounted against him. HR's first resignation hit Melissa, who once called me intimidatingly prepared. Walked mid-meeting. Others followed. BCCing legal on everything. Vendors pulled back. Legal murmured negligence. The DevOps crowd feasted on Slack leaks and blogs. Man who said, "No woman touches my root server," gets booted. Comments brutal. She warned them. Still, I waited patiently for my balcony. City lights flickering like fiber optics below. Red wine in hand, I replayed the server's first-day taunt. The emotional arc had evolved, from furnace rage to calculated resolve to this still sovereignty. They thought erasing me would streamline. Instead, they amputated their heart, leaving the brain gasping. The late-night email arrived at 2:14 a.m. from the CEO's personal account. Subject: Please. No assistant. No template. The body dripped desperation. Travis relieved. Board consensus. Director title or CTO. Name your salary. Retroactive severance. Recorded apologies. Just fix this. Obscene money. Lavish promises from men who'd once dismissed my process obsession. The cursor blinked on my reply field for ages. The part of me that had sacrificed everything for those servers ached to respond yes. The late nights. The duct-taped workarounds. Weekends traded for order. But deeper layers prevailed. They'd not merely fired. They'd insulted. Stolen credit. Humiliated for sport. Erased contributions. Cut their heart. Assumed survival. Now begging their defibrillator. I typed deliberately. Subject: Please. You once conveyed through your new hire that no woman touches the root server. Consider the wish granted. No one can anymore. Sent. No waiting for reply. Power reclaimed not by rescue, but by walking away at their knees. The refusal rippled outward like aftershocks. Travis was ousted by unanimous board vote. Cold memo. No ceremony. No parachute. His LinkedIn flipped to exploring opportunities within hours. But digital soot clung. Industry words spread fast among DevOps circles hungry for schadenfreude. Blogs amplified. Root server remark leads to boot. The CEO pivoted desperately. New hires. Audits. Groveling partner emails. Even a cringe trust rebuild initiative with hashtag and amateur logo. But trust erodes faster than it rebuilds when rooted in pride and subtle misogyny. The company limped onward with NDAs, desperation patches, and vendor band-aids. Swagger evaporated. The empire I'd architected through caffeine, insight, and endurance now relied on duct tape and fear. Clients trickled back warily. Stock stabilized at a lower plateau. Legal threats quieted under settlements. But the fracture lines remained visible to insiders, the nervous glances when systems hiccuped, the reluctance to trust new experts. I stayed home, not working, not gloating publicly. No Twitter threads.
No exposé?
No victory tour. Just coffee in my quiet kitchen, fridge humming without server alerts. Mornings free of demands. The laptop remained closed on the counter. An old companion retired from battle. Staring out at Austin's skyline, buildings buzzing with people equating volume to wisdom, I reflected on the stillness. They called it sabotage in whispers. I saw it as release, letting rot surface. Masks slip. Systems speak their truth without my constant intervention. I hadn't destroyed. They dismantled themselves, mistaking structural for disposable. The difference between support role and foundational one crystallized painfully for them. Emotional residue lingered beyond triumph, clarity. Yes, but also a hollow echo. The satisfaction was grim, like confirming a house collapse exactly as engineered warnings predicted. No dancing in the kitchen.
No vilain cacle.
Just quiet sovereignty. They'd begged. I'd denied. The fall became total, exposing how fragile empires built on bluster truly are. Colleagues who'd stayed sent occasional updates. The new infrastructure lead struggled with undocumented dependencies. Payroll glitches persisted intermittently. Stakeholders demanded deeper audits. Travis's name surfaced in industry blacklists. Opportunities drying as the root server meme followed him. The CEO's trust initiative flopped, mocked internally as performative. In quieter moments, I pondered the moral weight. What cost competence dismissed? How many invisible architects hold companies together unrecognized until removed? The sexism wasn't overt policy, but casual entitlement, taunts, credit theft, sidelining that compounds until the foundation cracks. My response chose elegance over explosion, documentation over deletion, walking away over rescue. Legal avenues existed, potential discrimination claims, IP disputes, but this path delivered sharper justice, self-inflicted wounds, irreversible lessons. The city lights blinked on, indifferent. Somewhere boardrooms still panicked. Whispers persisted. She said no. I didn't rebuild their world.
I reclaimed mine.
The root problem, it turned out, wasn't the servers at all. Weeks turned to months in that post-collapse quiet. The company survived. Diminished but operational. Patched by expensive consultants who slowly reverse-engineered fragments of my architecture. But the soul had shifted, cautious, less arrogant. Haunted by the weak that exposed vulnerabilities no slide deck could conceal. New policies emerged quietly. Better documentation mandates, cross-training requirements, subtle nods to inclusive input in meetings. Too late for Travis, whose career trajectory flattened into consulting gigs far from the spotlight. I moved forward too. A smaller firm in Austin's growing scene reached out through back channels, offering autonomy and respect without the baggage. But the experience lingered, shaping boundaries. No more invisible scaffolding. I insisted on visibility, credit, Seats at tables where decisions formed. The God file remained archived. A reminder rather than weapon. Reflections deepened in the stillness. The emotional journey, from the server room smirk that ignited cold resolve, through calculated documentation and patient erosion, to the CEO's midnight plea and my final denial, revealed layers of human contradiction. Arrogance blinds even the capable. Entitlement erodes foundations built by the underestimated. Women in tech especially navigate this tightrope. Competence mistaken for threat. Quiet strength for weakness. Until removal forces reckoning. Humor surfaced in retrospect. Travis's cologne ad poses. The kiddo jabs. The way his jaw seemed permanently set in 2007 peak mode. Dry wit in the absurdity. A man claiming root ownership while ignoring the woman who'd grown the tree. Social commentary wove through unspoken bro culture in boardrooms. The casual theft of women's intellectual labor. The fragility of male ego when confronted by undeniable expertise. Yet the haunting question endured. Would they have learned without the collapse? Or does systemic change demand visible failure? My choice to let consequences unfold rather than litigate or leak preserved dignity, but left broader inequities untouched. Others might fight differently: unions, lawsuits, public calls out. Mine was personal sovereignty, proving indispensability by absence, reclaiming power by refusal. Friends occasionally asked if I regretted the denial. The obscene offers could have meant financial freedom, titles, vindication. But saying yes would have validated their erasure. Positioned me as perpetual fixer rather than architect. Denying preserved the lesson. Foundations matter. Discard them at peril. One evening, wine in hand on the balcony, the skyline humming below, I felt the final shift. No rage remained. Only clarity and a faint, lingering satisfaction. They'd learned the hard way that volume doesn't equal intelligence, that support and structure aren't interchangeable. The system spoke its truth without me there to save it. In the end, the root wasn't the server hardware or tangled code. It was the human failure to see the woman who kept it alive. They tried to erase me and erase their own stability instead.
Now.
In the quiet, I sipped slowly. The cold coffee no longer bothering. Turns out some lessons only land when the lights go out completely, leaving everyone to face the mirror in the dark. What would you have done? The question hangs unanswered. In the Austin night,